Hey folks, Doomed Wizard here. I got kind of a different video today. Recently, I was approached by David Scott of Mad Genius Games, who likes my channel and asked if I would be interested in doing something with their game Everyday Heroes. And while I'm not like a game reviewer and I don't pretend to be a game reviewer, I'm going to pretend to be a game reviewer today. I told him, I said, yeah, I'll take a look at the book. I'll give you my honest opinion. And I talked to my gamers, and they want to play one of the games that come along with this set. The cool thing about Everyday Heroes is it has all kinds of really cool like IPs that it's attached to, like Highlander, Escape from New York, and things like that. My team wants to play Kong Skull Island. I'm not going to look at this. This is the adventure module. I'm not going to look at this because we're going to be playing it in about a month. After we play through it, we're going to get together and do like a review of it like we've done for Blade Runner in the past. If you haven't seen that one, I'll link it down below. For the sake of full disclosure, yes, these copies of everything was sent to me. I didn't pay for any of it. I guess I'll stop talking and start talking. Everyday Heroes started out as D20 Modern a couple years back, which was a variant, like a modern day version of third edition of the world's most popular role playing game. And I was a little hesitant when he approached me about it because that's all I knew about it. But then I went ahead and looked into it and discovered that it was basically a modern day version of 5e with some of the ideas from the third edition, like how you have these archetypes, and each archetype is based on one of the six stats, and that's what your character is basically built off of. As far as this book goes, it's got some meat on its bones. It clocks in around 450 pages. It's sturdy paper. She's a hefty book, stitch bound with a cool ribbon. My books are usually full of post-it notes, but the ribbon helps for sure. I suppose I should point out that this is the core rule book, which is why it's so big. It's basically three books in one. It has your player's guide, your GM's guide, and for lack of a better word, your monster manual. First thing I noticed about this book is the font. I really want to thank them for the size of this font. My old eyes and smaller printed material or light print on top of black pages like Shadowrun does. I I'm not a fan. My old eyes appreciate the size of the font. You get your table of contents. So initially you get a foreword that kind of explains everything I told you and then some. Chances are, if you pick up Everyday Heroes, it's not your first role playing game. But the cool thing is, they give you a couple pages of what exactly is a role playing game, which is kind of nice, you know. Basically, Everyday Heroes is an action adventure 80s cinema game. We can debate a lot of things, but one of the things that we can't debate is that the 1980s was the pinnacle of action movies. Well, this takes that idea and moves forward into the modern era with it, in that you could, if you want, I mean, they got Escape from New York, which was made in the 80s, Total Recall, which of course was the future, but it was also an 80s movie. So it gives you that 80s sensibility with the the modern day look and feel. They have a nice section on creating heroes that breaks everything down for you pretty easily. I love this breakdown. If it's unclear what your stats represent, I love these little symbols for what your stats are. Yeah, it gives you a nice breakdown of how to create a character from scratch. Um, Archetypes and classes, which is coming up here pretty quick. How to do levels. Unlike things like 5e, this does like milestone leveling up. In other words, when the first movie's over, boop, John McClane levels up to the next level. So much so that by the end of the series, he goes from being cop to super cop, who can apparently fly a plane. This game is basically archetypes, which are attached to your one of your stats, and your class stems from your archetype. I'm not going to go over every single page in this, but I will kind of try to hit the high notes about what I think is cool about it. And I haven't played it yet, but we'll be doing that very soon. So this is kind of, like I said, this is kind of a first impression video. And here we are, archetypes and classes. For instance, one archetype which is attached to your strength score is the strong hero, which is kind of a no-brainer. Some of the classes that go along with it are the brawler, the heavy gunner, the MMA fighter. As you go up in levels, you get new talents. The agile hero, which is attached to your dexterity, it gives you your talents and it explains them really easily. One of the things I like over this versus 5e is it's not as convoluted as 5e with the descriptions of everything. And it has a nice glossary in the back if you get lost, which I did frequently. Classes attached to the agile hero are martial artist, scoundrel, and this is a lot like a lot of the OSR books where everything you need to know is on the 2 pages facing you until you get to the smart hero because they've got a lot going on. They're like the wizards basically. Sharpshooter, and now we come to tough heroes, which is based on your constitution. Again, talents per level, your proficiency bonuses, your defense bonus, which everyday heroes doesn't have armor class like you normally think of armor class. It's like the higher up in levels you get, the harder it is for you to get hit. They have armor, and I may touch on that in this video depending on how long it runs. They have armor, but it's handled way differently, and I'm kind of excited to see how it plays out in real time. Again, your defense bonus is how, like, say, John McClane goes from being ordinary cop guy who hides in a air shaft all through the whole movie to super cop. Classes attached to the tough hero are the bodyguard, and you get your with each class you get your proficiencies and your talents, and they're all listed here or later on in the book. Commando. By the way, Commando reminds me of this. And, and if you know, you know. I want to touch on the art for a second. One of the things I don't like about a lot of modern games is the unified artwork. Now, granted, the book that I drew for Craig Bogart at Mystery City Games, I was the sole artist on it because he wanted a uniform look. Personally, I mean, I was I was happy to do it, but I like books where it's kind of mixed up because then maybe one person playing this game has a mental picture versus another person who has a different mental picture, and this kind of helps you like not just it doesn't limit you. It doesn't limit your imagination the way a completely homogenized one uniform look book does. Scrapper. This is what I want to play. I want to play Scrapper. Now we're on to the smart heroes. Like I said, everybody else, you know, is basically front facing character like, but you break off into all these different things that a smart character can do before you get to it. Because smart characters are basically wizards. Classes include the engineer, seeing all of the mechanical companions, hackers, which, to be fair, I could see where these would be a little more complicated because there's a lot more they can do. The mastermind, scientist, You got your wise heroes, which I didn't consent to this picture, but I'll let it slide. Your wise heroes include the hunter, which you might not think of as such, but I mean, wisdom is experience meets intelligence, is how I've always looked at wisdom. So the hunter class tracks, literally. Their animal companions, the master. I can easily see uh, our good friend Nick the Necromancer playing the master. When somehow I would imagine he's gonna look like Lee Van Cleef. Again, each class gives you your proficiencies and your talents, and you can look all this stuff up. If you get lost, it's pretty easy. And if I can do it, you can do it. One of the problems I have with games like this is there's so much. I'm a big fan of the games I grew up on, which is why I typically play OSR style games. But I'm all about action movies, and I'm eager to take a crack at this. The sleuth, charming heroes. Now, there's a class in the charming heroes that it didn't occur to me would make a good charming character, but now it totally works in my head after I thought about it. The duelist, because they're always suave and sophisticated. Zorro, that kind of character. There's just something sophisticated about and suave about swordplay. My favorite word, the icon, the leader, which I think is probably an important class to have in your party. So it'll be interesting to see when I run Kong Skull Island. I think there's probably pre-generated characters in this, but instead of using them, I'm curious to see what my players would come up with. The manipulator, finishing touches. This helps fill out your character sheet. Give round out your character a little more. The the official character sheet for this game is like 4 pages long, but honestly, the first page is really all you need in play. Everything else is just record keeping. Although there is a spot for vehicles, so like if you're playing something like a stuntman, and you get your badass muscle car, you can have all the stats for it. Or if you're playing a James Bond character, you have all the cool stats and stuff for your cool Aston Martin. Yeah, this all fleshes out your character, gives you your biography, and there's examples for creating characters, which I like. Again, probably not your first role playing game, but just in case it is, here's some help. We get a chapter on equipment that lays everything out kind of basically for you. Like if you're one of the cool things is, let's see if I can find it. You get your starter packs, which are handy. Like if you're in a hurry to play and you don't want to take, or if you're inexperienced and you don't want to like get overwhelmed by the minutia of your character, you get these nice equipment packs, which I really like. The badass pack, armor and shields. Something about the interesting thing that I'm looking forward to trying out in this game is the way armor is handled, because armor isn't handled like it is in fantasy games. Armor is basically body armor designed to save your life. It's designed as a saving throw to basically keep you alive. Here's something else I like. Your your firearms. Now, if you're a gun guy, you might not like this, but if you're not a gun guy and you don't want to get overwhelmed by all the details of different types of guns and stuff, they give you a basic idea like 38 pocket pistol. Now, if you're a gun nut, you can just come up with whatever name you want. You obviously know what kind of gun you want. But for the average person, they don't know one thing from another. They'll probably mostly pay attention to the damage that it does. So it's not really necessary to have a Shadowrun sized armory collection in a book listed. You can do that on your own. It also gives you some cool historical melee weapons, improvised weapons. I mean, where would Ash be without his chainsaw? Vehicles, like I said, you want a muscle car? It's in here. You want, a sporty modern vehicle? It's in here. Listed as basic concepts that you can then attach whatever. You want to drive a Jaguar? It's a Jaguar. It's that simple. Chapter 7 Feats. Feats optimize or add variety to your hero. By using them to customize what your hero can do, they help make each hero unique. Again, I like to play older games where, as Professor DM says, everybody should be allowed to hit somebody with a turkey leg. But this kind of, if you think about it, like, what I was trying to explain it to one of my players, the way I look at it is like, think about it like spells that customize your wizard. Is the best way I could think of. It's broken down nice and simply here, and then it gives you a little bit better description to kind of flesh it out a little bit for you here. Long kiss, good night. And there's all kinds of feats. It's kind of nice. You have a nice listing of your skills. Everything is broken down really succinctly, very smoothly. I've never returned to the back of this book to look something up and couldn't find it. So it's a very well laid out book. Shows you how to do saving throws, the 5e way, which when I first started playing 5th edition, it was so hard for me to wrap my head around the idea of what saving throws meant because the last edition of D&D I played was 2nd edition. So I kind of railed against it at first because I'm like, no, that's not the game. That's not the game. And then the more I got into it, I'm like, this makes way more sense. Just a little aside. You may have noticed we've moved on to part 2. This is basically the or the GM section, but it shows you how to break down combat fairly easily. Now it's a cinematic combat game, so that means there's a lot to combat, but it seems, and I haven't played it yet or ran it yet, but it seems pretty straightforward and simple. Just don't get used to this as individual initiative rolls as opposed to rolling for sides, which makes more sense because um, Bruce Lee would basically kick the crap out of Shaq before Shaq got to move. So the individual initiative works in a cinematic game. I've had this book for about 2.5, about 2 weeks now, but I've been sick, so I haven't had a chance to read through all of it. So some of it I'm just glossing over. I'm sure some of it will come up during the when we review Skull Island. And then basically the last third of the book is your monster manual, or basically it's a combination NPC guide / monster manual because it has everything from, like, it gives you your standard. If you don't want to have to make, if you need a bad guy on the fly, you don't have to like sit there and roll them up. You have your basic information, so you just grab like the thief, maybe change a little bit in here if it's important to the game, and then move. You can go from there. Mob Kingpin. You have upset Vanessa. Got some Tom Cruise action going on here with the spy. Then you come to my favorite part and the reason why I wanted to play Kong Skull Island. Dinosaurs. I think it was Raymond Chandler that had the line about when you don't know what else to do, just have a guy burst into the room with a gun and then figure it out later. Mine's dinosaurs. Like give the dinosaur a gun. It also has cool science sci-fi stuff like aliens, robots, um the entity from beyond, which I don't know why in the world you'd want to mess with that. Robot soldier. So you can literally play just in this book, you could literally play any scenario you wanted. And another thing you could do is they have a whole section in here. Well, there's zombies, of course. They have like some of your standard fantasy monsters. So that tells me I could basically bring in if I could find it as a 5e variant, I could bring in any creature I wanted, or through the magic of GMing, transport my characters into something that's even way more outrageous than like Skull Island, or there's a Highlander um, game you can play with this that was the second runner up for what my players all voted on. I was the deciding factor because I wanted to play Kong Skull Island. Anyway, so if you can get away with that, you can get away with just about anything, I feel. There was a section on creating new allies and opponents. And then here's your character sheet. Like I said, it's 4 pages or 2 pages front and back, however you wanted to think about it. But honestly, this is what you need to play. This is where you need to store your information. So it seems like a lot, but if you play this game for a while, you're going to have a lot of stuff to add to it. Like my character that I created when I was trying to figure out the rules for this game, it's very simple. You know, it's a very simple layout. I don't have it with me. Plus, my handwriting is, you know, chicken scratch. It wouldn't make any sense to you. But all your basic information goes here. All your added stuff goes here. Like I said, there's a thing on here for where is it? 5 pages. My bad. They have a whole section here where you can add in your kick-ass muscle car or whatever your cool vehicle is. Helicopter, if you're like say TC from Magnum PI, your helicopter would probably be here. All right, well, that's basically all I'm going to touch on today with this. I hope this video gave you some kind of idea what you're looking forward to. Like I said, in the future, we will be doing a review of Kong Skull Island, probably late February, early March, depending on everybody's schedules. Because you know, when you're our age, everybody has schedules. I want to say thanks again to David Scott for reaching out for me, and Mad Genius Games for sending me all this cool stuff. Again, I hope this helps. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.